All right, so section 1.3 is all about measuring segments. So the first postulate is the ruler postulate, letting you know that you could use a ruler sometimes, or they use a number line to measure the distance between points or the coordinate of a point or how far apart they are. So one thing they give you this fancy formula right here, but one thing to remember is distance can never be negative. So can't be negative, and that goes forever. Distance is never negative. So that's why in this formula they have the absolute value of a and minus b. So if say this was 2 and this was 8, you could do the absolute value of 2 minus 8, and that would give you the absolute value of 6, which is just 6. So, which makes sense because we know 2 is 6 places away from 8. So don't overthink it. Just know if you get a negative answer, you need to take the absolute value because it's always going to be positive. So on this one, sometimes you have to get a little creative and maybe write on there, show your work a little bit about how you figure it out. Everybody thinks a little bit differently on these. So the measurement of ST. So here's S, here's T. Keep in mind they're counting by twos. So some people can see right off the bat that it's going to be 12. If you struggle with that and you can't see it visually right off the bat, that is perfectly fine. You could always just count. Okay, there's 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, and 2. Well, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 twos. So that has to be 12 is the distance between ST. So, or you could have used the formula. You would have had the absolute value of negative 4 minus 8, which would have been the absolute value of negative 12, which is 12. Whichever way you see it, that's the good thing about geometry is usually there's a lot of different ways to look at things. Whichever way your brain sees it the best, that's the one I want you to use. Okay, so now the next question is what are UV and SV on the number line above? So UV is right here. It's 2 and 2. So that looks like 4 to me. Or you could have said 10 minus 14 or 14 minus 10. The order doesn't matter. So, and then SV, well, this is a long one. So, like I said, everybody sees this a little bit differently. This is how I see it. So, from 0, it's 14 away. And from 0 to negative 4 is 4 away. And then I add them together and I get 18. If you wanted to just count by twos each space, that's perfectly fine too. Whichever works best for you. Okay, so now let's talk about the segment addition postulate. And keep in mind, I said these postulates are usually common sense things that they just have to give a name to. But this is kind of one of those. So it says if 3 points A, B, and C are collinear, and B is between A and C, then AB plus BC equals AC. So what does that mean? It means if this is on a line and there's 2 segments on a line, and there's a point in between, this section right here plus the other section equals AC, the entire section. That's all that means. It's just a fancy word of saying that. Okay, so if EG equals 59, what are the value, or what is EF and FG? So first we have to get a little creative here. So we have EF is going to be, we're going to have to do this plus this, all of this equals 59. That's what the directions say. So how do we do that? Well, we've got variables. There's not just numbers. We got to figure it out. So you're going to have to take this section, 8x minus 14, plus, because you're going to add those two together, plus this section, plus 4x plus 1. All of that has to equal 59. All right, and now we are just doing some basic equations, algebra stuff. So I'm going to combine my like terms, my x's. That would give me 12x. Then I have a negative 14 plus positive 1 would give me negative 13. equals 59. All right, then I'm going to add 13 to both sides. And that would give me 72 equals 12x. Divide both sides by 12. Divide both sides by 12. And so you get x equals 6. Okay, so the question didn't ask you what x equals, but you had to figure out what it was in order to figure out the length of these two segments. So now let's figure out EF. So EF is, they tell you right there that it's going to be 8x minus 14. So now I have to plug in this 6 in for the x. So I have 8 times 6 minus 14. And please, on your homework, you should be showing this step. I want to see you writing this step. Even if the next part you put in the calculator, I still want you to write down what exactly you're putting in the calculator. So that would be 48 minus 14, which would be 34. So EF equals 34. There's one of our answers. Now we have to figure out FG. So FG is going to be 4x plus 1. So plug in my 6. Again, please show this step. This is what I want to see. And this, if you typed in a calculator or just did it in your head, would give you 25. So FG equals 25. So those are your two answers. All right, so now let's go on. The next part, whenever you're measuring distance, you don't say, well, you can say they're equal, but another thing they say is congruent. So congruent is the same thing as they are equal distance. And you're going to see that a lot in geometry, the word congruent. Here is the symbol. It's kind of a cool looking symbol. It's an equal sign with a little squiggle on top. That's it. So that means they have the same length or the same measurement. So on this one, it says AB and CD. See how they're both 1 inch right there? It tells you. So then you could also, instead of writing that, you could say AB is congruent to CD. That's another way you could say it. Okay, now let's go on. So the question is asking you if AC, the segment AC, so that's this one right here, and the segment BD are congruent. So first, let's figure out how much AC is. So AC, this one's a little tricky. It's the number isn't on the line exactly. So this one is right in between 4 and 6. So think, what number is between 4 and 6? Well, that's got to be 5. So you go from -2 to 5. So if you wanted to do the formula, you could say the absolute value of -2 minus 5 would be the absolute value of -7. So that would just equal 7. And then let's figure out, now we have to do BD. So BD is going to be the absolute value of, looks like we have the number right between 2 and 4 right here. That would be 3. So you have 3 minus 10, or you could say 10 minus 3. Either way works. So that would be the absolute value of 7, which is just 7. Okay, and so are they congruent? Yes, they are. So those are two congruent segments. All right, and the diagram above is AB congruent to DE. One handy thing about writing on the iPad is you can erase stuff fairly easy. So it says AB, so A to B. AB is going to be the absolute value of -2 minus 3. That'd be the absolute value of -5, which is 5. And then we've got DE, so D to E right there is going to be 14, excuse me. And that would just give you 4. So your answer is no. These are not congruent. All right, moving on. Now we have in the diagram, this is like the one above, JL equals 120. What are JK and KL? So the whole thing equals 120. All right, so what do we have to do? Just like we did in the example above, we gotta do 4x plus 6 plus this other piece, 7x plus 15 equals 120. So 4x plus 7x, those are like terms, gives you 11x. 6 plus 15 would give you 21, equals 120. Now you need to subtract 21 from both sides. 99 equals 11x. Divide both sides by 11, so x is 9. So remember, they didn't ask us what x equaled, but we had to figure that out in order to realize what the segments, what the distance was of these segments. So on JK, we're going to have the formula is 4x plus 6. So I'm going to be plugging in 9 for my x. So I have 4 times 9 plus 6. That would give me 36 plus 6, so 42. And then on the next one, that's JK. Let's label that. And then KL is the equation for that is 7x plus 15. So let's go ahead and substitute 9 in right there. And we have 63 plus 15, that'd be 78. So KL equals 78. Sorry, it's a little hard to read. So KL equals 78. So that is the answer to that problem. Okay, let's go on to the next page. The midpoint. So midpoint of a segment is a point that divides a segment into half. They're going to be two congruent segments or equal segments. A point, line, ray, or other segments that intersect a segment at its midpoint is said to bisect. So if it bisects something, it's going to divide it into half. Bi means two, so it's going to cut it into two equal pieces. Those can also be called segment bisectors. So if it cuts a segment in half, it's a segment bisector. Okay, use the midpoint. So Q is the midpoint of PR. What are PQ, QR, and PR? So if Q is the midpoint, then that means this and this must be congruent. Do you agree? Hopefully you just said yes. So if they are congruent, then they have to be equal to each other, right? That side equals that side. So we're going to set up an equation. 6x minus 7 equals 5x plus 1. Let's go ahead and solve. Remember, you get all of your variables to one side and all of your constants to another. So I'm going to subtract 5x from both sides. That gives me x minus 7 equals 1. Add 7, x equals 8. Okay, good. So we figured out what x equaled, but that's not what it asked us. So we have to figure out what PQ, QR, and PR is. Okay, so let's do PQ first. PQ is 6 times 8 minus 7. So that would be 48 minus 7, which would give you 41. Okay, theoretically, QR should also be 41. Some people I know will just go straight ahead and they won't show their work. It's a really good thing if you're one of those people who likes to double check stuff. This is a really easy, quick way to double check these. But let's just do it. So it'd be 5 times 8 plus 1. Well, that's 40 plus 1. Sure enough, 41. So PQ equals 41. QR equals 41. And then the whole way across, so that would be PR. PR is going to equal what? Well, it would just be 41 plus 41, which would be 82. So 82 is PR. Okay, now let's move on to another example. If you want to pause the video and try it on your own, please do. Otherwise, I'm going to work it out. So U is the midpoint of TV. What are TU, UV, and TV? So it's the same thing. If it's the midpoint, then those are halfway across. So those have got to be congruent. So let's do 8x plus 11 equals 12x minus 1. I'm going to subtract 8x. 11 equals 4x minus 1. Add 1. So 12 equals 4x, divide by 4. So x equals 3. Sweet. Now let's figure out the other parts. So we have TU, which is 8 times, or sorry, let's just write the whole thing out. So 8x plus 11, and we're going to substitute 3 in for x. That'd be 24 plus 11, which would give you 35. So TU is 35. There's one answer. Let's see if we can get the exact same answer and double check just in case we made a mistake, or in case I made a mistake. So UV equals 12x minus 1. 12, substitute 3 in for x. Minus 1, 36 minus 1 is 35. So yep, we did that right. So UV equals 35. And then last but not least, we have to do the whole way across. So that would be TV. TV is going to be 35 plus 35. So TV will equal 70. All right, we've got all 3 segments, so we are finished. All right, the last little bit about, before we do one more exercise. So perpendicular lines. Perpendicular lines form right angles. So if you hear me say the word perpendicular, you immediately need to think 90 degrees or right angle. So they use this symbol right here. That's the symbol. It looks like an upside down T. So that symbol means perpendicular to. So like in this diagram, it says line AB right here is perpendicular to CD. Okay, and then vice versa, you could have wrote CD is perpendicular to AB. Doesn't matter. Okay, if something is a perpendicular bisector, so perpendicular means 90 degrees. Bisector means cuts it in half, so it bisects it. So it would be a line that is formed at a right angle, makes a right angle, it's perpendicular, and it cuts the segment in half. Okay, last examples. So in the figure, if AD equals 20, so AD, I'm just going to go ahead and start labeling them. AD equals 20, and AC, the whole way across from here to here, is going to equal 3x plus 4. Find the value of x. So the whole way across, well, if AD equals 20 and it's congruent to DC, DC also has to equal 20. So I need to figure out, well, I already got, I'll say, let's solve for x first. So 20 plus 20, that's going to tell me that whole thing is 40. So I need to do 3x plus 4 equals 40. I'm going to subtract 4. We've got 36 equals 3x. Divide by 3, x equals 12. So there's one answer. Then we're reading all the questions, then find AC and DC. So AC, I already said it. AC is all the way across. So AC is 40. There's an answer. And DC is 20. We had to figure that out earlier. Okay, now I'm going to erase so I have room for the next problem. So if ED is, I'm going to do this one in red. ED is just this little piece right here. If this is 5y plus 6, and then DB right here is y plus 30, find the value of y. Well, looking at this, you can tell they are what? They're congruent. So they must equal each other. So you're going to set them equal to each other. So I've got 5y plus 6 equals y plus 30, and then let's solve. So I'm going to subtract 6 from both sides. I don't know, that works. So I have 5y equals y plus 24. And then I'm going to minus y from both sides. 4y equals 24. Divide by 4. Y equals 6. There's one answer. Now, if y equals 6, ED is going to be 5y plus 6. So we're going to substitute in 6 for that y. So 5 times 6 plus 6, which would be 36. Then DB should be the exact same answer. Let's hopefully it is. Hope it is. So y plus 30 would be 6 plus 30, 36, check. So DB equals 36 and ED equals 36. So the whole way across, EB should equal 36 plus 36, which is 72. So EB equals 72. All right, that is it for this section. Oops, what did I do?